Alright, let's get started. So we've got your retro console here. Typically on these guys, there's not a whole lot of screws. For the Dreamcast, you have 4 on the bottom, which I've already taken out. They are right here. You can use a set from, like iFixit. I have this. It's like pretty much all the screw bits you'll need. And then there's 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th one. There we go. So we got this guy, which we will take apart here in a little bit to clean up as well. And then you've got your last screw there. And so, flip this guy over. You want to make sure there is nothing on the inside. This guy will just slide right off. So we're going to take a look at this here in a moment. We're just going to set this off to the side. And so you can see, at least for this guy, get it in the camera, there is gunk all on the inside here, and just overall, like, the corners aren't super clean. The case isn't clean at all. Underneath, we've still got the foam, which is nice and neat. It's also for, like, dampening of any of the sounds, because this guy does make a lot of noise, which we will talk about here in a minute. But you'll definitely just want to start taking everything metal out, especially if you want to clean it. This guy is glued. The last one that I worked with, I didn't worry too much about this guy because it is just foam. It can dry. So let's go ahead and start taking this guy apart. The buttons are not that hard to take off. You just kind of have to get some pressure on each side and push, and they should pop right out. Same thing over here. Boom. You can see the buttons aren't in terrible shape. They're not super dirty. They are on the inside, which we are going to take. So now, kind of the main unit here. You've got kind of a mixture of everything here. You've got the main board, you've got the connectors up here, the fan, and then the actual CD drive here. First thing you want to do, disconnect this guy. This is the power. So be gentle. Alright. And then there are 2 screws holding this guy in. So you've got one here and one over here. Don't believe there's any others holding it on. And you also have these connectors here that hold everything together. So we're going to move that right up there. We're going to get this guy taken apart. Everything together there. I've got a nice rubber mat down, trying to keep everything nice and as much as I can ESD protected. This guy has not been plugged into power for some time, so there shouldn't be any issues there. But you always want to be careful. And so there's 2 screws in the fan. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep everything together. Those guys out, and these go right up there. And so this guy is actually held on, so you just gotta squeeze it, pull it right on out. Be nice and gentle with it. So this guy, super dusty. We're gonna give that guy a nice clean as well. We're gonna remove this guy here. This is that main power button. Come on. gubbins. Alright, sorry, I had to readjust the camera there just a smidge. So now we're going to take off this front panel. There's 4 screws in this front panel. I also got a little battery here. This is what actually controls a lot of the save games and actually the save time, I believe, which is a coin cell, so you could technically change it. You would need a soldering kit, or at least a really safe way of prying that guy off there. And so this guy just pops right out, and it's all held on down there. There is a ribbon cable that you need to be super gentle with, but that just pops right out. And then next, we're going to take the CD drive off. Pop it off that connector right down there, right here. And so we're going to work on this separately here in a few moments. But this guy, there's a few things you can actually do to improve this one, which if you look real close, it looks like hairy, like there's dust build up, and so we just want to make sure this whole thing's still functional at the end of it. So we're going to put that to the side. And so we've I've discovered that takes that away and actually helps kind of revitalize all of that is hydrogen peroxide. This stuff is super cheap. What I like to do is I like to cut it half water, half hydrogen peroxide, and let it soak for many hours. If it is a nice and bright sunshiny day out, you can actually just take hydrogen peroxide and dip it in a bucket, clear bucket, or however you have it, like a tray, and actually set it out in the sun for a couple hours, rotating it, and that will actually bring back that luster. This works on most of the old consoles, like the Super Nintendo, the Dreamcast, basically any of the gray consoles that they produced. And so I actually have a bucket next to me that will actually be putting all of this stuff in, just letting it soak. So let me get that set up, and we'll kind of jump cut. It's not the cleanest bucket, but it is a bucket that I use quite often. And so you can just take these guys, and because there's no metal, you can just submerge them right on in. So I'm going to need some more water, but you kind of have the idea of what's going on here. We can also take the little buttons and just pop those right in. And so you can kind of see just the discoloration, just the general dirt and grime that these guys had. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up and just get some more hot water in this, let this soak, and I'll be right back. So while we're waiting for all that stuff to get going, we are actually going to clean this guy up. So as I said earlier, the actual like laser looks like it got some sort of focus, like dust around it. Will it focus? Probably not. So it looks like it got some sort of dust around it, and there's also some other stuff that we can do. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to weed this wire all the way around so we can actually work on it. So be very careful. Don't want to pull too hard. Okay. This way we can actually open that guy up. And so we've actually got the mechanism that moves everything here, and we also have the laser on the other side. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move the laser up just a little bit, just so we can get a nice look at it. And so I actually have some cotton swabs here and some Windex. We're just going to put a couple drops of Windex right on the tip there, and we're going to try to clean around this and just kind of pull up any of that dust and grime here, just to help out as much as possible, and also help clean that the best it can as well. Sweet. Nice and clean. And so now we're gonna scoot that back. We're actually going to do something else. So I have this protective white lithium grease. This stuff was actually recommended to me by some people out in the retro restore community. This is good for this mechanism right here. This is the actual motor, and it actually helps drive the laser back and forth. When these guys get older, they get very loud, and it actually starts to make a lot more noise than it used to. So what they recommended, and it's what I do with any of my older consoles, especially with the newer ones that actually have the disc eject tray, is I try to grease that up so it doesn't get stuck or any sort of like nasty business there. So you don't want to spray this directly on it. I always try to get some in a little container here. It's a little plastic container. It's nothing super crazy. Get all the extra off. Okay, so now that we have that ready to go and completely greased up and ready to play all the video games, we're going to set this guy back in its little home here. You want to make sure that you get these wires back in this groove, and then we're gonna just fan it right back over here, and then just lift these little clips up. Sorry for those little clips right here. Lift those up and just push it right on back. Same thing with this. Alrighty, and there you go. So we have the finished product here. You can see just how much nicer this looks. I couldn't get all of the little scritches and scratches off. For some reason, I swore I had Magic Eraser, which is a lot of times what this needs. But you can see the inside is just super nice and clean now. I was able to reconnect everything on the inside of this guy, make it nice and neat and clean. We were able to get that fan cleaned out the best I could, because I didn't want to try to over clean it or anything like that, just because some of these parts are pretty delicate. But yeah, we got this all back up and ready to go. Alrighty, I've got it all plugged in here. Sorry for the shaky camera work. So that turns on. I believe this guy is turned on. Oh boy. So I've got Sonic Adventure in there right now. This one was not reading discs before. Alright, I think it's working. Yeah, buddy. Just make sure the controller works. Well, I guess I just proved that the controller works. So we got Sonic Adventure right there. Boom.
Selecting memory time.